Hello, this is Darren Nolan, health and fitness instructor at Graduation Alliance. And this lesson I'm going to cover is lesson 4.1 from Health Education Semester 1. And the topic of this is environmental risk factors stemming around drug and alcohol abuse. So some factors that I want to discuss first are environmental and protective factors. So when we talk about environmental risk factors, these are influences that can lead to substance abuse. Things such as your childhood surroundings, your home life, and also your social surroundings fall into the category of environmental risk factors. And then protective factors, things that can protect us from these risk factors. These are things that help to counter the negative impact of environmental risk factors. They also serve as a buffer to help diminish the influence certain risk factors might have on individuals' likelihood to use drugs or alcohol. So I'm going to talk about different types of factors that are influences, and then we'll cover the protective and the risk factors for these. So first of all, focused on the individual. So some risk factors related to an individual begins using drugs or alcohol at an early age. So that increases your risk factor of becoming dependent on drugs and alcohol. A person has an impulsive, sensation-seeking, risk-taking personality, increased risk factors, poor social coping skills, early childhood development and/or behavioral problems, or possibly is feeling alienated. Some protective factors are well-developed social and problem-solving skills will help protect us from possibly taking that step to using or abusing drugs or alcohol. Also, well-developed sense of self-esteem has also been shown to keep individuals from going down the path of drug and alcohol abuse. We talk about our family as a support system, risk factors related to family. If there's a history of drug or alcohol use in the family, that increases the risk factor. Pattern of favorable attitudes towards the use of drugs, alcohol, and/or tobacco. Inconsistency in parental supervision, discipline, and/or nurturing. Unclear household rules, expectations, and consequences concerning drugs, alcohol, and other generally risky behaviors, and conflict-ridden, experiencing disruption such as a divorce or homelessness. These are all risk factors that could end up pushing somebody to use drugs or alcohol. Some protective factors based on our families, ability to communicate with family, parents or guardians. Hopefully you have an open communication with your parent or guardian. Discussing issues about the use of drugs or alcohol with parents or guardians. Parents, guardians supervise children in their activities with friends, including the selection of friends. Parent guardians know the friends and their parents and guardians. Rules are clear and consistently enforced. Child feels connected, valued, and supported. Parent guardians have expectations of child's success, such as good grades, high achievement in school, and extracurricular activities. So those would be the protective factors that our families can give to help us avoid drugs and alcohol. Our peers, big influence on drugs and alcohol. Some risk factors associates with peers who use drugs and alcohol or tobacco is going to increase your risk factor of using yourself. Associates with peers who engage in risk-taking behaviors such as arson, vandalism, theft, etc. Peers have favorable attitudes towards drug use, so hanging around people that feel that it's okay to use. Has few or no close friends with positive behavioral traits, and has no close friends who can provide positive emotional support. The protective factors that our peers possess associates with friends who do not use alcohol or other drugs and can have healthy drug-free attitudes. Has one or more close friends with positive behavioral traits, forms long-lasting friendships, and relies on friends for positive emotional support. So those are the protective factors that our peers can give us to help avoid using drugs and alcohol. Our schools that we attend, some risk factors with schools, experiences academic problems, poor school performance can lead a person possibly to use drugs or alcohol, lacks commitment to schoolwork or high academic achievement, lacks a sense of belonging in the academic school community, feels lost in the crowd. Speaking to that a little bit, being a high school teacher for 26 years, I do know that Many of my students that I've taught over the years that are connected to their school in terms of clubs, athletics, theater, whatever it may be, the connectedness to a school, I tend to see those students, it's a little easier to steer away from drugs and alcohol. Not that it doesn't happen, but I just think being that connectedness, you have a team or a group of people who are pulling for you, especially if it's a positive group. Protective factors: experiences success and feels commitment to school, involvement in extracurricular activities, kind of like I mentioned, and the school takes action to discourage drug, alcohol, and tobacco use. So if the school has a zero tolerance where individuals that are using, abusing are being held accountable, then that is a good protective factor to have. Our community, some risk factors: alcohol and other drugs are easily accessible. So if your community that you live in, it's easily accessible, that's going to increase the risk factor. Disorganization and low neighborhood attachment. Community sanctions, values, norms, and attitudes are favorable toward drug use. So maybe many people in your community use drugs and alcohol, and it's a favorable attitude. Local law enforcement incapable of effectively deterring crime, including illegal drug, alcohol, and tobacco use. Some protective factors: start a neighborhood watch program, get involved in the community by volunteering or possibly tutoring. The activity for this lesson is activity 4.1.1. You'll have a couple scenarios, and for each of the scenarios in the activity, you're going to match risk factors and protective factors and the area of life, home, school, etc., that they pertain to. If you have any questions, please reach out to your health or fitness teacher, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.